strong ESG commitments and investment in green mobility and renewable energy. How are you aligning this to your global sustainability strategy with local needs and innovation ecosystem like Cyberjaya's? Like what mentioned by Dr. Sean just now, the ecosystem has helped the company to thrive. And what has this ecosystem, like in Cyberjaya, has helped Yinson in building more innovative solutions, not only for the country, but also globally?
Yeah, maybe just to take a couple of steps back, right? So, as you rightly pointed out, Yinson is an energy infrastructure and services company, but we actually started off in the offshore production side of the business. So we run this large-scale FPSO, floating production, offshore offloading and storage, vessels, and it's a cash cow for the business. So I think there's no doubt. The sort of contracts that you're looking at, right, is like 15 years, like with very stable income stream, right, that comes into the business. But in 2020, we pivoted. We expanded into renewables and then green tech, a year later. It's just a very simple philosophy. Like, oil and gas at the end of the day, there's only an X amount of reserve. It's going to run out at some point in time. How does the business actually pivot, right, to ensure that you continue to survive? Just on that note, we don't cover airspace like aerotime, but we do cover land and marine. And on that note, I think we have been quite proactive in the expansion. A lot of our renewables assets, I have to say, it's not in Malaysia, it's mostly in Latin America at this point in time. But the green tech business, we hold Charge EV. I guess one of the more well-known, charging point operators, initially from MGTC, then we took over, right, operationally. We have expanded into leasing of four-wheelers. So one of our case quite successful one was actually the partnership with Post Malaysia. So they were actually, thinking about how to decarbonize and to cut down their emissions by 30%, right, by 2030. And we came in and we said, hey, mobility, transportation, right, actually makes up close to about 30% of actually national level, right, emissions data footprint. If you can actually cut that, right, I think that's going to be quite substantive. So why not try electrifying, right, some of the vans or the transportation mobility side of things, and we come in with a bundled solution, right? So we're saying that we don't just lease out, this four-wheelers to you, but we also come in with charging point operators. Would you like to take that up, right? And I think on that note, I think that business is actually picking up quite a fair bit. But we have also expanded into the innovation ecosystem, right, in the marine side. So we have two prototypes, the Hydromover and Hydroglyder, which is really meant to electrify, right, the maritime ecosystem. So a lot of people don't typically think about maritime logistics, right? But oh my goodness, like this is huge. And if you sort of think about, expansion, you have airspace and all this civil aviation regulation, right? Maritime, I tell you, is another area, right, that I think that has huge potential. Think about Grab, right, in maritime services. I think that's the sort of opportunities that we're looking at. And while a lot of people tend to focus on what's visible to them, I tell you, the blue economy, wow, in terms of economic contribution, if you think about aquaculture, even offshore production, and some of the opportunities that have come across, right? Just yesterday, CH3, one of Temasek Trust, right, actually made quite substantive investment, right, in direct air capture technology, I believe, right? And these are the sorts of opportunities that we are slowly trying to unpack that people don't know of, and I think it's important to highlight that. For Yinson, we have invested equity, we're really trying to capture the whole value chain of carbon. We are of the opinion that carbon is going to be the next commodity, and hence Yinson is also presiding over the Malaysian Carbon Market Association. We actually helped set that up with 9 consortium members with this belief that when you talk about carbon, it's not just about reduction, removals, but there's also a carbon compensation piece where we feel that so-called hard to abate sectors, right, must actually play a role, right, in climate action. They should not just sit on their laurels and say, oh, we've done enough, and that's end of story. And there's so much potential to tap into, right, in Malaysia. I know we're talking about tech-based, right, so carbon removal directly, but I also wanted to highlight that nature-based solutions, like through reforestation, afforestation, mangrove plantations, right, they are also nature's one of best technologies, right, in terms of capturing carbon. But the issue is, how do you actually convert, right, this capturing of carbon, right, and monetizing it? So we have this issue in Malaysia. There's a lot of logging companies, timber companies. These are businesses, right, that have existed for 30, 40 years, right, in Sabah, Sarawak, Peninsula Malaysia. If they want to convert their logging areas, right, to protect, to gazette, to turn it into a forest conservation area, right, who's actually going to compensate them and the state, right, for loss of income? So that's where we think, carbon credits actually have a role to play, and hence we're also, coming into that whole value chain of carbon ecosystem, right, to help not just number one, right, alleviate, the poverty level of some of the indigenous marginalized communities, but we also think that we have a role to play as a policy influencer, right? So we are not policy makers, but we are policy influencers. So we are taking a lot of the knowledge that we have across, the different base. Of course, there's also a reason why we set up the green tech business, right, in Cyberview, because going back to Sean's point, right, it helps us connect with the ecosystem, meeting actually the right people, the right stakeholders, not just for knowledge sharing, but also taking it one step ahead, right, to look at where are the potential collaborations and opportunities for partnership. Still very nascent, I would say, but we do see that there is huge value to be unlocked, right, on that front.